Now, Northern Territory Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa Price is calling for contentious alcohol bans to be returned to the NT amid mounting concerns of an increase in alcohol-related issues. The bans were originally brought in during the Northern Territory emergency response in 2007, but they were removed earlier this year.
The Northern Territory government has been criticised for a lack of consultation with affected communities before lifting the bans. Their lifting saw bipartisan criticism, with Conservative Senator Price and Labor member for Lingiari Marion Scrimgeour both highlight the issue in their first speeches to federal parliament. Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa Price joins us now from Alice Springs. Good morning and welcome to Weekend Breakfast.
Good morning and thank you both for having me.
Senator, you're going much further than just calling for change. You're in fact looking to introduce a private members bill. Just what would it do?
Well, at the moment, we're dealing with a situation where alcohol is having a huge impact right after these bans have been lifted. And unfortunately, the current Territory Labor government, instead of providing the mechanisms, I guess the transitional process to opt away from the bans originally, they need to go back. I'd like for them to go back to do the proper consultation. But until all that work has been done, what I'm proposing to do, right now the bill's in draft form, it's being drafted, but what I'm proposing to do is put a hold on alcohol out in those communities until the proper consultation has taken place, plans and strategy have been put in place to effectively deal with alcohol in remote communities. I mean, I'm fielding calls from distressed community members about the fact that alcohol is back out in their communities. They're feeling unsafe. Violence is starting up again. There's feuds in some communities close to me and my own family. So this is a really deep concern for me and those people in those communities.
Senator, would your private members bill, if supported through Parliament, have the effect of sidestepping or going around the NT government or making it illegal for them to have any impact in those communities?
Well, basically, it would be the federal government putting those bans in place, and the legislation, obviously, from a federal level, we have the ability to do that within the territories, whether it's the Northern Territory or the ACT, but particularly for the Northern Territory, I think it's particularly concerning given we've got some of the most marginalised Australians in our communities and the fact that alcohol has a huge negative impact on their lives. We have the ability to put those sorts of measures in place for the benefit of their safety, for community safety, and in an attempt to curb alcohol, the harm of alcohol in those communities. So yes, we are in a position where we can do that. And I have spoken to my colleague Marion Scrimgeour yesterday. She's obviously very concerned about this. I'll be having further talks with my other Labor colleagues going forward and when next I'm in Canberra.
Is Marion supporting this private members bill?
At this stage, she recognises something does need to be done. She's stated that obviously in her first speech to Parliament. And so she's interested in what that might look like. She's interested in participating in the consultation process with me as well. There are stakeholders that I want to be able to speak to in putting this together. I don't want it to be an immediate knee-jerk reaction. This is an emergency situation as far as I'm concerned, but the right processes need to take place before this bill does go to Parliament. I want to make sure that I've got the support that I need for it to be supported to go through for the benefit of Territorians.
Senator Price, we might shift gears now, although do keep us up to date on that, the progression of those discussions. We haven't had a chance to speak to you since the election and when the Prime Minister then made the announcements about his calls for a voice to Parliament. I wonder, what's your position on this progression and this discussion about an Indigenous voice to Parliament?
Well, in these current circumstances right now, it's pretty irrelevant. You know, myself and Marion, we're elected Indigenous women from the Northern Territory. We're trying to work together to solve some of our really critical issues. We're connected to communities. And so, you know, for me personally, we have a democratic system that's in place. and it's about those of us who are elected making sure that we're doing our job effectively, making sure that we're representing all our constituents and their concerns in Parliament to bring about solutions. I'm not in favour of applying another bureaucracy into our constitution to begin with, and particularly one that's along the lines of race, and suggest that that Indigenous Australians will need special measures forever going forward, when there are many of us who are very successful, yourself and myself, of course, Dan, and we've got a system that works. It's about doing better in that particular system, and I think we can do that, particularly now that we have 11 Indigenous Australians elected into Parliament.
Yeah, you're right, the highest number ever of Indigenous people elected into Parliament. One of the things that has been mentioned in this progress around the voice discussion following the Uluru statement was about having a mechanism that was outside of the party political boundaries and outside of bureaucracy, if you will. Do you see validity in that? And is there an opportunity for you to help then design or co-design, if you will, something that isn't going to be bound or tied up with some of the issues that you just mentioned?
Well, I don't believe that it's outside bureaucracy. I do believe it is another bureaucracy and a mechanism that none of us are too sure how it's going to actually operate. And, and as I said, outside of party political bounds, well, myself, Marion, we're trying to work in that capacity outside of party political bounds and for the benefit of those vulnerable people in the Northern Territory within a system that already exists, that operates. I mean, I don't know how much more sort of we need to be able to make things happen. I know there's a lot of concern across the country from other Indigenous Australians who feel like that they have been ignored, that are dissenting voices in this argument about a voice, in this debate, that they're not being listened to. They don't feel like they feel it is another mechanism, particularly for the elite of the Aboriginal industry, to ensure that they're embedded into the Constitution, that they'll always exist. And they've felt that throughout their lives they have been largely ignored by those elites from the Aboriginal industry. And again, I just don't see, countries like Germany, they have actually legislated against putting anything along the lines of race within their constitution, within their laws, because of the very real tragedies that occurred in their country, which was all very much race-based. So I don't like the idea that as Australians we would go toward that. Eventually, we want to end up being recognised and treated equally as Australians, regardless of race, and race really shouldn't come into the picture. As I said, I can't support this particular an idea of this structure within our Constitution.
Senator, I'm sure we'll have many more opportunities to continue discussing this. Thanks for joining us here on Weekend Breakfast.
Thanks for having me.